everyone, and welcome back to Clutch Chess, the legends here in stunning St. Louis and the St. Louis Chess Club. Game one is in the books between Garry Kasparov and Viswanathan Anand, half a point apiece. But before the break, I had posed a question to both of you in an effort to stump you. Which player won the longest high-level 960 game so far in 2025? The results are in. It's Magnus Carlsen.
That wasn't my guess.
That wasn't your guess?
I was going Hikaru.
I guessed Magnus.
Get out of here.
I'm lying. I guess Hikaru. But the game has begun, so let's jump right into that. And we see E4, E5 on the board.
E5.
This is what the move. This is the move that Vishy felt was the better choice than the E6 choice. That
I don't like E5, and I don't like it because of F4. I mean, I know, we all know the King's Gambit, and we all know that it really, really has some danger behind the King's Gambit. Let me just, for example, show you what I would hate to do if I was black. Let's say I play the move Knight C3. I do not want to see the move D5. And as we know, in a King's Gambit, you often play the move G6. I'm taking advantage of my bishop being on the E1 square. Look at this. The bishops are suddenly awesomely powered. The rook on F1 is sweet. The knight, queen can go to H4. No.
Okay, but I'm going to counter that. Yes. I'm going to counter that, Yaz, and say that.
Let's do it. Oh, he recaptured. No, Garry.
Well, the challenge, however, I mean, he doesn't have to play the move G5, right?
Like
you're slowing him down, but he could just develop his pieces. The reality is the pawn, the thing that you might be concerned about if you are black is playing the move D6 at some point.
Okay.
And blocking your bishop on F8.
Blocking the bishop on H8.
No, on F8. In the King's, you talk about the King's Gambit.
Yeah.
Normally.
Yes.
You play D6, you block your bishop.
Right.
My bishop's on H8. My bishop is not going to have any worries.
Right.
So by capturing on the F4 square, that bishop sitting on the long diagonal is piercing down the entire diagonal. I wasn't saying that D6 was the correct move.
I understand.
I was saying you could take on F4 the way he has done and play and look to get play by getting your bishop on this diagonal. Now, he has played the move G6. He could have gained a full-scale tempo with the move G5 instead.
Right.
Instead of wasting time, maybe he was worried about all those squares he was giving up, the F5 square in particular. But he did play the move G6 instead. And now G3 by Garry. It doesn't have the feel of a King's Gambit at all. I mean, at all at the moment. So how dangerous is it? Well, the eval bar seems to suggest that it's fairly equal. The knight's popping out. The queen will move. The king may castle queenside.
Right.
And I'm not feeling really that badly for either side.
No, but I would say as soon as the tension was created, it was relieved very early on there. And we can see, I think, that both players have taken some drastic learnings from the first game to the second, because a reminder to everybody at home, we're playing the same starting position across all 4 games. So there's a really good opportunity for us to see them cover for maybe mistakes that they had seen in game number 1. Referencing game number 1, let's get the scoreboard up. You can see they're half a point apiece, but as we mentioned at the top of the show, there's quite a bit of money in play. Half a point apiece for the draw here in rapid portion number 1. We're currently in the midst of rapid number 2. But let's see where that bonus money's going to go.
Show it to me.
Does it go anywhere? It goes to the future games. Because it was a draw, it will be added in to games 11 and 12. So that $1,000 that was up for grabs with a victory is now getting slid towards further on into the day.
We should point out that games 11 and 12 each are already worth $3,000. So the $500 we just saw there is actually additive. It's $3,500 in game 11 and $3,500 in game 12. Yeah. So that purse is stacking up, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so no draws go wasted in clutch chess.
That's right. That's right.
We do have knight c3, knight c6 on the board. I didn't like the recapture because the rook, to my eyes, is misplaced. that would actually be an ideal post for a knight. Like, if I could play the moves knight h3 and knight f4, I'd be much happier putting the knight.
Whoa!
All right, now we're going to spend some time to get into
Whoa!
That is a very aggressive capture.
Unexpected, completely.
And whoa, back at you, because B captures, yes, toward the center. This is a very intriguing move. He's going to have to castle. Queen side is white, and he decided to capture with the B pawn, so that side of the board is somewhat compromised. Garry felt it was okay to do, felt that it was a better idea to do because he'd be able to play d4 at some point. And his king, he doesn't think is going to be compromised. Maybe even that the B file is open towards your king if your king is going to sit on that side of the board. But I got to tell you, those are two radically interesting moves right so far. Move 5 and 6 in the game.
If you guys don't mind, for a moment, let me just give myself an enormous pat on the back.
Please do.
Hold on. Help me out here a bit, James.
And I'll brush the shoulders out, too. Why not?
I said that because you had asked me, how do these players match up in their overall understanding of chess? Great. Vishy is one of the very, very few grandmasters in the world who had this propensity of giving up his bishop for the knight.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's right.
He likes his knight. And a lot of players were under the influence of Bobby Fischer. I got the 2 bishops. That was a decisive advantage. Vishy played the move bishop takes e3, true to himself. Maurice.
Yes.
And he created an imbalance.
Made almost more peculiar by the fact that they had opened up these incredibly long
diagonals.
Left that sniper scope there for the entirety of the game, and yet he feels this is the moment to exchange it for the knight.
This was an audacious move. It is also a move that Garry Kasparov does not believe in. Garry loves the 2 bishops, and he says unequivocally, the bishops are better than the knights. That's how it works. And Vishy is saying to him, yeah, whatever, here we go. We're going to play this unbalanced position. Show me. And this is where we are. These 2 great champions with very distinct opposing beliefs about the value of these minor pieces. It's not that Vishy doesn't realize that bishops can do work. I mean, clearly, the bishops are powerful
won a lot of games with 2 bishops
himself. But he believes in his ability to create this imbalance with this exchange. Obviously, pawn structure compromise as Vishy now tucks his king in a nice little queenside castle position. It is also White's king that's a bit uncertain in terms of the shield that it has. Yes, it's going to take a few moves for that king to tuck itself in on the A1 square. Will there be an attack over there? Gary's going to take it slow and say, listen, okay. The argument has started. The gauntlet has been thrown. Let's show you what these bishops can do. And by the way, you have the bishops. You don't have to open up the game right away just because you have the 2 bishops.
Right.
Long term, the game will open up.
Right.
Long term.
Pieces will fall.
You know, and once that happens, that the game opens up, you get your bishops in the right squares, bang, boom. They start to do damage.
I like it, though. A bit of a tongue-in-cheek way to say maybe let's settle some of our chess ideological differences here over a game of Chess 960. Let's put our ideas to the test. All that said, I'm looking at the current board state, and I'm loving the space that White has to work with already. I'm seeing a lot of difficulty for how to continue to develop my pieces off the back rank here for the player with black. My queen has almost created a little bit of a point of congestion. How do I get my rooks into play? My light-squared bishop is completely locked away at home. Even my one knight that has found its way out onto the 6th rank, where does it go from here?
Exactly. For me, if I'm in black shoes, I like the breaks d5. I like the breaks f5. I would like to prep them. I think my queen on e7 is a little bit, if you don't mind me saying, in the way. Hence, I would find the move queen c5 attractive, not only because I could give you a little check, but what I really want to do is play knight to e7, follow it up with f5, or knight to e7, follow it up with d5. I got to, by the way, let's be clear, we're talking about the bishops here. I got an issue with this bishop on e8. It's not a good bishop. I want to bring it out, and I have to play d5 or f5. So
you can play, I was exactly going to say it, I promise you, I was going to say this move d6, because I thought solving this bishop, the problem of this bishop seems like the pressing thing in this exact position. Like, this is what you want to do. So it seemed to me to make sense to play d6 and then bishop to d7, bishop e6. Takes a little while, but the bishop on e6 allows for the move d5 to be played, as well as the move f5. So maybe Vishy, as we've seen, his tendency so far has been to play a bit slower. If we take game 1, he hasn't been playing with speed, alacrity, aggression. He's taken things very solidly so far, and maybe that's what he wants to do, just play a nice solid bishop d7, bishop e6. If we could play bishop e6 in one move, you'd appreciate the bishop.
Of course.
You'd say, yeah, it's great. It's just going to take some time for it to get there.
Yeah. Again, for me, the move d7, d6 makes perfect sense. It fits, just like Magnus Carlsen. You had the answer all prepared first of the Masters.
I did have I did think
you were thinking Magnus. You were thinking d6.
I was not. I admit I was not correct about Magnus.
I like the move d6. But now, having said that, I also like, bringing that queen. This king doesn't have that much of a pawn shield. Queen b6 would have provoked the move rook b1. I mean, because I would be threatening check.
Yes.
So for the moment...
Yeah, Gary's away from the board. I was about to say, this guy is getting up a lot. Look, I know where he just went. That's the restroom over there. The new refurbished club. Maybe refurbished, but there's still a restroom sitting on that side. And so he's just quickly rushing to the restroom, take care of business, and come right back out. And now Vishy has to deal with this clamp of a move, c4, saying d5. No, forget about it.
No,
it ain't gonna happen. From New York City, particularly from Brooklyn. That's what we say. Forget about it. That's not going to happen in this game. And he's also opening up a line for that bishop on e1.
Correct.
Hey, you traded off your dark square bishop. That's my money piece.
Exactly.
I'll put the bishop. I'll try to clamp down with bishop c3, bishop f6. Of course, you're not going to allow it. The other thing I'm thinking is, the knight on g1. That's pretty lousy. Put the knight on d5.
Yes.
Knight to e2.
Yes.
Knight c3.
And then all the way up.
Here Gary comes rushing back.
Okay.
Got his face washed, cleared out. Let's go, let's go.
Well, he'll be happy to see that Vishy actually hasn't made a move, so no time wasted for him.
By the way, the old school was go to the bathroom, wash your face with cold water, and, get that, let's go.
What's that? Wait, I didn't know that was a technical term. Get that. I like that.
Well, there you go. He's following your line there, Maurice. He's going to slide the
D7.
bishop out and maybe eventually get it over here to the e6 square.
Yeah, but I got to get a break. I got to get a break. I don't want to be stifled. So f5 really does need to happen at some point. And the bishop, you may see the king looks a little bit airy for white, but bishop to c3, that's a gorgeous bishop. And our colleague, late colleague, Jeremy Silman, who passed away, he wrote a couple of brilliant books.
Many,
Many, in fact. And one of them was How to Reassess Your Chess. And in that book, he talked about the imbalances. And that was his key message in that book, playing with the imbalances. If you look at the position right now, you can see those imbalances in the position because it's about the pawn structure, doubled. Black structure is very compact, pure, in fact. But it's the bishop against the knight. Don't think about it as two bishops. As we see the move f5, a necessity had to be done at some point. Don't think about the light square bishop alone because both sides have light square bishops. It's the dark square bishop that is going to say to black one day, you gave up your dark square bishop. Who's competing against me?
Right.
Nobody can fight that bishop. And it's always going to be a challenge for black to think about it. But if anybody has mastered the art of squaring off against bishops with knights, it is Viswanathan Anand.
Yeah, because he's the one so often with the knights. f7, f5, again, it's all good. I don't want to take all these moves back. But it does beg the question, why did he need to prepare it? I mean, white is dying to play c4 and bishop c3. Why not just play f5 right away? Let's just go. I'll play f5. You can take on f5 if you want. If you don't mind, I'll just play a move like this, just to put some moves on the board, just to show you the concept. Please remember a moment ago I was sacrificing a pawn to that old King's Gambit. Here you can see black's pieces suddenly
come alive.
Whoa, wait a minute. D4.
Yasser Seirawan just sacrificed a pawn for initiative.
It goes to show. I mean, you know, old dogs and all that stuff. Rook takes F5. We do have the rooks posting off. Remember I said what would be ideal is this knight transferring itself gloriously to the D5 square. Well, help me out here, James. Would you please be so kind as to trade rooks? And then Garry would say, okay, now I've got you. Now I've got a very, very serious clamp on the board. Vishy cannot do that. He cannot afford to trade rooks on Garry's terms. So the move knight e2, I would just find very, very compelling.
This is the minus to the move f5. You might be breaking so that you can break for your piece, but you also broke from my piece, my bishop on h1, getting all that life. Now the two bishops, what did we say? You don't necessarily have to open the position. It will eventually open.
Yeah.
And it has now occurred, and now the bishops are looking saucy. I mean, they are quite happy pieces in this exact position, and more white pieces are going to come into the game. The only problem right now for white that needs to be solved, to my opinion, the rook on a1. If it could only leapfrog to the e1 square, castle with the
rook and queen.
Right?
That would be the ideal.
That would be
Castling,
pretty sweet. But yes, if you could just put rook on e1 right now, black would be in deep trouble.
Okay,
Like just straight deep trouble.
A rook is the problem piece for white. I'm still not loving that light squared bishop here for black. And now that that file's open, the e6 square doesn't feel as good to be planting a bishop on anymore.
I agree. However, my problem is bigger than that for black. My problem is actually the knight on g8.
Precisely.
Because I don't know where it belongs.
I would say immediately off the g8 square. Just as the knight might come to e2 to go to f4, I might like the knight to go to h6 to go to f5.
Okay, so you found a square for it.
Or knight h6 to f7, and then back to bouncing around. Right now I'm reacting. I feel like black is the one reacting to what white is about to do. And in my opinion, Garry wants to play the move knight e2 so he can secure the d5 square for the knight.
If we take a look, by the way, at the eval bar, it's really important as now we see a rook takes f5 trade on the board being played. When you see this kind of lead, and the eval bar is acting a little bit crazy, bishop takes f5, it did not like, and like pawn takes.
Remarkable.
Which would have weakened that pawn, but owned the e4 square. So this comes as a surprise to me. There's no...
This looks more pleasing to my eyes.
What, bishop takes?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Keeping the pawns connected, the bishop is now out and fully a part of the game.
Actually, it only gave it a little bit of a deficit compared to where it was before. It looked like it was winning, and suddenly it changed that. That was just a glitch in the computer.
I have played Garry a lot. I swear I saw him make a smile. I am not kidding. I think that move, bishop takes f5, surprised him. I think he was expecting g6 takes f5, and he is looking about giving up his own bishop on c6. Bishop takes c6.
No, he's played queen f3, hyper accentuating that last
By
move.
the way, you see that little twist?
The queen jiggle? That's Garry Kasparov when he's very confident and now getting up from the board. I remember this as though it were yesterday when he played game 10 of the 1995 World Championship match. I was calling it with Danny King. You were in attendance as well, Yasser. And every single move Garry made in that preparation in that Rue Lopez, it was with finesse, flair, and force. And then he would make the move, write it down, get up, walk out, walk out the room. And apparently he didn't try to bang the door, but it was a heavy door to that glass cage they were in. And it was bang! And Vishy would feel like, what's going on? And Vishy said later it disturbed him. But Garry would go back to his waiting room, chill, and then when he saw the move on the screen, come right back, write his move down, play the next move, and walk out again. And that's Garry's way of saying, I got this. I don't have to think. I know I'm in a good position, and I'm going to let you sit and stew and let your seconds tick away. And now as we look at Vishy, you see the move Queen F3. He looks like a man who is stewing on the position and wondering, what should I do about the growing initiative and the strength? I mean, he looks like a lonely man in this shot. By the way, of course, nobody else is in the room except the documentarian and Garry and Chris Bird, who's the arbiter. But he knows full well Gary's next stop is Rook E1, as we mentioned.
Yep, that's a tempo.
That's a tempo he's going to gain, and then the knight's going to hippity-hop into the game, end up on that D5 square, as you mentioned, Yaz. There are some things that he's going to pay attention to. Even the D4 square is possible.
Precisely. Actually, because of the battery of the bishop and queen, it suddenly occurred to me that Garry has a completely different concept in mind. Knight E2 to D4. And that would attack that knight on C6 so that the diagonal, the long diagonal from G1 to B7, you pounce. So I am seeing initiative Garry all the way in this one, and Vishy on the back foot.
And by the way, again, if you look at the eval bar, you see that it's saying slight advantage for white.
Okay,
slight advantage. This kind of play, it means with perfect play, it should maintain exactly this evaluation. So it means that black is not in deep trouble.
No.
But it's the feeling you have as a human. You're thinking, what should I be doing here? How do I get some play? What are exactly the moves that will give me a concrete path forward? And you see that last move, Queen D7, is a very defensive, logical move. His point is, he's going to put his knight on E7. Well, first of all, he sidesteps
that business.
That Rook E1 tactic. But he may be looking, I would think, to put the knight on E7 to be able to reinforce that knight on the C6 square and play for more after this. So this position is Vishy saying, keep the advantage within bounds. Don't let him get any kind of rolling attack.
Right.
He's looking at the building or the stacking of that threat against the knight that's sitting there on C6 currently.
I like the move, by the way, Queen D7 a lot. I like dodging Rook E1, but more importantly, what you've described, I like defending that knight on C6. Knight E7 on Vishy's agenda. Sorry, James.
I mean, do you still keep rolling, though, with your game plan in Gary's position? Do you start
knight
bringing
E2?
that knight over?
Absolutely.
But check this out.
All right.
If I may, if knight to E2,
very
your
good.
knight no longer guards the H3 square, what if I start challenging you with my bishop?
Okay, you can do that.
Okay.
Bishop G4. I go back.
And I play bishop H3?
Yeah, you forced me
Okay, you want to go like
off
this.
the diagonal. But guess what? That's not such a bad diagonal either. I'm thinking bishop takes C6, queen takes A7. I'm thinking, remember, I wanted to go to D5. Maybe your bishop isn't so good on H3.
Now we see knight E2 is on the board.
With or without Rook E1.
No Rook E1, no tempo there, just knight to E2. And we do have the possibility of that bishop to G4 hit, or just knight GE7 as we suspect he wants to do.
Do I have time to get my rook there on the D file, over, just to slide one
rookie
spot over?
Yeah,
say, hey,
sure.
I'm going to preempt your ability to tackle this file?
The questions that we were having dealt with the move knight D4, though, because this is all white. This is a boss.
That's a knockout blow.
Yeah, that's absolutely not what you want. So we were thinking knight E7, knight D4. Then you could move your rook if you wanted to F8 or E8. Or Maurice had a good idea there with bishop G4, just to kick me backwards a bit. But maybe you start with bishop G4. Here, you want to be controversial? Let me introduce another idea.
Trade it off.
Giving up your
second
bishop.
Double down.
Double down.
Double down.
Look, I like my knights, guys. I got the cavalry. I don't know about you guys.
Woo!
I got the cavalry.
No me gusta. I'm not feeling you giving up the two bishops in this position. Those bishops looks like they are slicing and dicing every angle you could name. I mean, look at this. This joker is like bow, and this guy's like ta-dow down the diagonal, and your knights are saying, we got you under lockdown. That would be impressive.
You have to overcome your dogmas, guys. I mean, you got to have a creative, free-flowing mind.
No better way to prove a point, though.
Look at Garry. He looks grimly determined.
Well, if we return to the live position on the board, we are going to see that G4 move.
Bishop G4.
So the queen's going to have to slide out of the way.
It'll back up.
Exactly.
Queen to G2.
Logical move.
You got to love Garry, thoh. You know, he's just a commentator's dream.
I know.
Him and Hikaru. Oh, my goodness. They just show so much emotion, whatever they're feeling. Look at Vishy. I can't tell if he's in trouble, if he's doing well, if he's thinking about dinner, he's thinking about watching a movie later. Right. He's just like cool, calm, collected, no emotion, poker face. Garry's like, you know what? I don't trust you. I need to crush you.
Grimly determined.
That's what his look. And, okay, you know, every little tick, every single one. Like, you see him changing faces, and now clearly that genius mind of his is working a million miles a minute before making the decision, like, okay, I don't want to go through the nonsense and play queen back to F2.
That's a surprise move. Okay, again, the bishop came out to knock us off the diagonal, but I thought we would at least provoke it to H3 before going to the G1, A7 diagonal. Nope. Garry said, Queen F2.
Too much subtlety. Let's just bring it back.
Not necessary.
And let's go for it. Still, I got to say, advantageous for white maybe according to the engine, probably definitely according to the engine. Black has no weaknesses, real weaknesses to speak of.
Its structure is fine.
Structure is perfect. All pawns together. In fact, his pawn structure is superior to white's. His knight d4 has landed on the board, offering
a little bit of a surprise.
A little trade there.
I thought it might be going to the d5 square. Nope, I was wrong. Knight to d4. Okay.
To trade or not to trade?
Well,
that is the question.
Bad move. Bad move. H5 alert. Careful, careful. I am a pawn grubber. I will do this. You know me. It's not that I'm just taking a pawn. I'm loosening up the black king ever so little. So there's no reason for Vishy to allow the loss of the A7 pawn. I'm thinking he'll tuck in his king. I'm thinking king b8 will be his go-to move.
Yes, king b8 looks solid enough. The only thing I can say about this position for black, maximum solidity, to be sure, is I'm not clear the rook has as much flexibility as white's rook. So there's the E1 square for white, but it's also the F1 square for white. So white can look maybe to the future of being playing such a move and then some penetration on the 7th rank. But again, the solidity in the position for black, it is quite tricky. Yes, like for example here, rook F1 would be a move worth considering.
Now you're cooking.
Just try to get a little momentum, a little flow, a little spatial control. Two bishops, let's go.
I hear you.
So, but again, perfect play right here. Vishy should be okay. The problem is Garry seems so confident. He keeps getting up. Like, whatever, I'm going to let you stew and hopefully make a mistake one day. Here comes the trade that
knight takes d4.
We knew was possible. Garry will come back, and we expect
queen captures.
Queen captures d4 for me is an automatic. Bishop takes d4. I don't really see that as being a great bishop there. Queen takes d4 gives me two purposes. One is to grab that pawn. Another is to maybe on a good day pay you a visit on the king side. Queen takes d4 I'm expecting, almost certainly. Apologies, it's a move too late, and it's something we discussed earlier.
He has to play queen takes d4, by the way.
Something we discussed earlier was this break. No, he didn't do it. It wasn't what Vishy was looking for.
Vishy had another idea entirely, is to move c5.
Counterpunch. You are
skeptical.
That's a grimace. That's maybe more than skepticism.
I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure? Okay, help me out. Help me out here, guys. I'm playing queen G7.
Did you see Garry just stretch their little flex? Are you sure that he just looked at Vishy there? Like, what is this move about?
C5?
Like, are you sure you want to play moves like this and give me a chance to penetrate along the rank? And this we haven't seen from Garry. I haven't seen this in a while. Look at the head bobbing back and forth. Whoa. This guy, he's saying, man, I got something. I see something that I really want to hunt you down some kind of way. I don't trust your last move at all. Is this really all that good? Let me just post in there on F6 that he has done right now.
He posted on
Yes.
F6.
Not G7.
Not G7. Okay, this is an indication to me, Maurice. He's
rook's
ditching.
finally coming in.
He's ditching F1 as a potential square. He's looking solely now at rook E1 and penetrating to the 7th rank with rook E7. The nice flexible thing about the bishops, and we've always said this, what is the advantage over the bishops over the knights, is usually the bishops are able to trade when they want to trade themselves. The knights have a hard time forcing the trade. So, for example, in this position, white can always play bishop takes. It's harder for black's knight to say, okay, I'm going to capture your bishop now.
Right.
Because the bishop can run away at a long distance, so the knight can't keep hunting it down.
Exactly.
While bishops are sitting all the way back, knights are essentially clear targets. So now this position.
But you didn't give me your, when you saw the move C5, I mean, you saw Gary's reaction, unexpected for you, right?
Yes,
yeah, like,
definitely a surprising type move, weakening the D6 square, exposing your king a little bit more. Looking at it a bit, though, you realize that it does give less pressure to the king itself. I don't see white being able to attack the king as easily, but there is positional pressure that I'm scared of. And like you said, the penetration onto the 7th rank.
With, rook E7.
And your D6 pawn is weak, so rook E1
is natural.
You cannot play rook E8. You cannot counter. If we could just put that on the board. Rook E1, you cannot play rook to E8 because now snap, snap, and snap some more, thanks for the free pawn, and your position has collapsed thanks to that C5 move. So this does offer rook E1, and then you wonder, how do you plan to play? Maybe king C7? Let's play this line out. Rook to E1.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
And now king C7, and the threat is to play rook to E8. Bishop C6, I know you're excited to play, but he can capture back with the queen.
Yes.
So
you said rook E8 here?
No. So the idea was that the king is now defending the pawn, and if we capture with the idea of rook to E7,
there we go.
Whoops! The queen dances just in time.
And with the bishop opposite color position, we're starting to trend a bit more drawish, although not all the way there. And C2 could become a point of contention later, as black may be able to attack that square far off into the future. But the opposite colored bishop positions also tend to favor the attacking side. And here...
It's scary.
Yeah, it's a little scary.
Yeah.
It's a little scary. I got to say that.
Okay. But there is only one Garry Kasparov. Something is there.
There's a symphony at play inside that mind right now, I have to believe.
Yeah. Something is going on.
What is going on is, I just saw, in addition to those motions, the Ancient has just given this an almost blunder level type move.
Rook E1.
It goes
didn't like
red.
It didn't like it at all.
I'm
sure.
That's got to be a glitch. And no way rook E1 is just blunderificus.
It's a good move. It's a good move.
How?
It might be a missed opportunity type of thing, but it's still a good move. You're bringing a rook
What
into
was
play.
Another move to play here?
Rook F1, bishop D5.
In fact, the Ancient is giving rook E1 as the correct move.
Now, it's thinking about it.
If you go back one move, it's going to be rook E1 as the best move. I don't understand how rook E1, that coloration, we got to talk to the programmers, because rook E1 is definitely the top move in the position. It's just too obvious. And now king C7, you would think, is what Vishy should play so that he can counter on that square as well.
Now, at this point in the game, is it a 1 result, 2 results?
No,
three results type of game? Okay.
I think Garry has a slight pull. The engine thinks it's even or completely balanced. I think it's still easier to play white, but if white doesn't get in something very forcing in the next 5-6 moves, I'm not saying that D3, D4 is a good move. If white doesn't get something and objectively open up the position in his favor, Vishy's going to equalize with moves like king c7, queen f5, rook d7.
I think the engine is giving a bit of an edge here to white because of this, the flow. You can see the eval bar is over that 4 mark and closer to 5.
Okay.
So I think it is saying white's a little bit better. But what do we say? If I could keep it within that 4-5 range, it's going to be a draw. Yep. It's only when it starts creeping up into that 5-6 range and beyond that you're in real trouble. So right now we have a situation where Black still needs to play good moves. The onus is on Black, and give it to somebody like Vishy. King C7 on the board. He's going to defend like the 5-time world champion that he is. He might be a little bit older, but dude is still a baller, and he's showing it here with the move King C7.
Yeah, he's been around. He knows when it's time to just tuck it on.
Yeah, finding the best move in the position, and in that moment, the clocks will kiss, and now Garry Kasparov is going to work with a little bit less time on the clock overall as we crest below 11 minutes apiece here in our second rapid game.
No, for me, I don't know how I'm really supposed to improve the position. I always try to think in terms of how can I maximize my pieces. So the bishop on h1.
Maximize, you said?
Maximize my pieces. I'm thinking the bishop on h1 is a good piece, but let's just bring it into the game. So I put the bishop on d5. I'll put the rook on e4. Then I'll start to say, now what do I do? I want my pieces at their zenith, at the height of their powers. And for me, bishop d5 is natural.
May I say, the thing about a compromised pawn structure is the inability often to create new break opportunities for yourself. Right. And as we look at this structure, it's all about the pieces, right? It's straightforward. It's all about the pieces. And so was bishop d5 played? It was played by Garry. Again, you're trying to improve your piece as much as possible.
Exactly.
But Black is got no real weaknesses. The d6 pawn is not super targetable.
Let me find a weakness that I can maybe chisel against. So,
okay, so there I'm forced to play the move queen to d7 or e7, I think.
As you would like.
I'm trying to figure out which one's better, but maybe this one.
I think it's going to transpose Maurice. I don't think it's crucial that this exact moment. You're going to have to play takes on g7.
Yes, let's go.
Okay, I take.
And then 97 makes some sense?
Oh,
no, 97, you take the pawn. All right, so now I have to push the pawn, sorry.
Exactly.
H5?
You have to push the pawn, h5. So I'm trying to make a little bit
Bishop
of
f5?
Yep, bishop f5.
Now I'm starting to see the value of 2 bishops, though.
You can see it a little bit.
That said, how do you increase your initiative? Now knight e5 is playable against that last move?
Sorry, maybe bishop to e8. It's not much.
It's just a little bit of a niggling advantage, but not because you have no overwhelming pawn breaks. And White's bishop, what do we say? The bishop on c3, the dark square bishop that you have that I don't have, is the one that I'm most scared of.
Right.
But I'm not scared if it can't find any targets.
True. That's right.
And so you're going to have to play a la Steinitz, a la Botvinnik, who are masters at taking 2 bishops and turning them into something, but you have no pawn expansion. That's out.
Right.
So everything you're going to do with pieces, piece play. And if you trade off all the pieces, how do you beat the guy?
Yeah. Maybe there's not enough in the position.
It makes me like that d5 move even more, though, because at the very least, I've guaranteed that 2 of your pawns are going to sit on dark squares for some time, right? Giving me maybe a future, point of attack.
That is true, but guess what? I'm going to stay defensive with that king, and it's going to be extremely difficult for you to increase the pressure on the d6 pawn. So if I put everything on light squares, the key piece in this position will be the king. That is the white king. Where will the white king go? If the king could teleport to the g5 square in the analysis that Yasser just said, so take this king and march it all the way over somehow after maybe, of course, the trade queens and trade of rooks to this square here, well, then that trade, those trades that Yasser just made with a bishop eyeballing the pawn on that square, then we could talk. Right? So we can play out this line while they're thinking, as a matter of fact.
When we were trading the queens, and as you said, well, you're provoked to play h5. Now you're saying, teleport the king.
Man, if I could just drop that king on g5 in one move and change the rules, and And also, you had no play. You have to also have no play yourself.
Right.
Because that knight is thinking about b4. If your king starts to leave, you got some weak pawns too. It's not that easy. So maybe you play a3, maybe you play c3, get your king over, but you start weakening things yourself. So this is what Garry's up against. He knows he has space. He knows he has the extra bishop that his opponent doesn't have. But his opponent doesn't have any weaknesses. And if I don't have any weaknesses, good luck winning the game.
Right.
And that's what Vishy is counting on. And that's why Garry is thinking for so long, and so long, in fact, that time we saw was once about even. He is now way back.
They were equal at the beginning of this move right here at 11 minutes or so apiece, and now dipping well into the single digits. You can see there on the side of your screens a bit of a head shake as well from Garry as he continues to work through the lines, considering whether or not he actually wants to opt for this trade of rooks.
He doesn't.
He
doesn't. He doesn't want to see those pieces leave the board.
I would go in this position. He did it. He traded rook. Sorry, I would always think in the following terms: whose king is weaker? If you tell me my king is weak, I'm trading.
Yes.
I'm trading off the rooks. I'm trading off the queens.
That was a relief, and as you can see, the eval bar has dropped. That trade was not the greatest trade to make, and this position is now trending more towards equality. Yes, you still have the two bishops, but that trade, we often see strong players, Garry included, take a rook off of an open file and put it elsewhere just to avoid the trade of pieces.
Precisely.
Because it minimizes your advantage. And that trade on e8 did just that.
Yeah.
Now we're becoming more and more specific about the pieces in this position, and right now it's only about the h7 pawn. Queen d7, given a question mark?
A small question mark. I guess I would have preferred e7.
e7 was more accurate. Well, why would this be so bad?
Well, again, I'm thinking the only thing I have in the position is this pawn. A moment ago, you were playing the move h5.
Now you can't do it.
Well, the problem with h5 is that g6 was easily defendable.
Right, now my bishop comes in.
Precisely. That's the threat. Now, maybe with the queen on e7, there was a better way of handling this. Queen h6?
Is it not that then I can slide my light squared bishop back and just block?
Yes. So if you, in this position, try to prevent me from playing bishop g8 by dropping your bishop back, well, I will snip a pawn.
Regardless,
and,
with check.
With a check. So, okay. So the move queen h6 basically says, challenge, defend the pawn on h7.
Okay, hold on. Back up a second. Because
well,
it's so crystal clear. I know, but just back up one move, if you will, and play that move, queen to e7 and queen h6.
Or maybe it was time to move the king. Sorry,
give
play
up
the
pawn?
move queen e7.
Queen e7.
Oh, sorry.
And now queen h6 with the threat of bishop to g8.
Correct.
Right.
What's the difference?
Let us imagine what the difference could be. Okay, we want to defend the pawn on h7. Let's prep that defense, right?
Boy, that is sophisticated.
Wow.
Okay.
And it's weird. It's weird,
I could never find that in a million years.
Because there is a chance of queen e2 being...
Queen's more active.
Right.
A long way more active on the square.
Bingo.
Amazing. And Garry has instead played the queen to h8,
Gets
allowing this h-pawn to be able to move at some point.
That allows the move h5.
That allows the move h5.
So that's not
subtleties being missed by both players, and Garry is almost 6 minutes, 5.5 minutes down on the clock, and under 5 minutes.
But by the way, it took me a challenge to play queen h8 first before finding queen h6. Yeah. Queen h8 on the board. Sorry, Garry, under 5 minutes. Did we just say?
Yes,
that's exactly right.
He's under 5 now. That's
top right-hand corner of your screen right now.
With some relief,
yes.
He's played the move h5 to solve that problem. But now the g6 pawn is the next problem, but he'll put a bishop on f5 is his hope.
Is this ridiculous? Queen Queen A8.
A8.
Now I'm looking to snap off your knight and then pick up that A7 pawn.
It's slim pickings, I got to tell you.
That's not a lot.
That's
not a lot because we could trade queens in that position.
Exactly.
And then get into a potentially drawn endgame. Let's actually show that.
Oh, please.
That
case.
Let's just play queen there, and let's just play a move like bishop to f5. You could just avoid losing the pawn. I'm just curious, even if you win your pawn, how do you feel in this position? I play queen takes.
Queen takes.
Okay.
And what do you feel about your winning chances when I trade queens here?
Zip, zero, nada.
Yeah, so I'm wondering what your real threat is, even if I gave you what you wanted.
Zip, zero, nada.
That doesn't seem like the way to go. So
I saw fear etched all over you.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you really were sweating that one out.
No, that was nonchalance, my friend.
Yeah.
Masking is fear. I don't know how that works. But this last move, h5, it is saying to Garry, you got nothing, dude. Yeah. Show me the money. Yep. And by the way, 3:25 left on the clock, and I've got 10 minutes.
I'll start thinking about my chances. A moment ago, James wanted to offer the challenge of the bishop to e6. That's a potential. Also, you know, bishop f5, queen e7, queen d1.
And I don't like what Gary's doing now.
Going down on the clock?
Going down on the clock. But not only going down on the clock, seemingly clock unawares. Yeah. You've got to feel the clock ticking. And right now, he doesn't seem as though he's even feeling any anxiety around the fact that he's under 2 minutes and 45 seconds right now. He looks like he's calculating some lines. You know, we're chilling. It's at the park. I got all day.
Let me tell you about panic.
Bro, yeah, you're going to enter panic time in a second.
Right now.
And
I would play queen g7 and force a draw.
Now he just glanced at the clock. That was the first time he showed that he was potentially under pressure from the ticking clock.
Yeah, and that is a problem. Time management, when you're not playing actively, you start kind of getting into this. I need to convince myself I'm making the right move. You double check your analysis, and you play really slowly. I'm starting to worry for Garry. I would play the move queen g7 and trade pieces and make a draw.
Dipping below 2 minutes?
Dipping below 2 minutes. You know,
that's not good.
There is, I'm going to make this up, there is a thing like a time eval bar.
Yeah.
Okay? Right. I'm just making that up. But there is such a thing. Right?
I'm with you. Look, I know where you're going.
The eval bar objectively says the position is you're a little bit better, but the time eval bar says, bro, you are looking like you're in a lot of trouble, and I might just have to beat you. Because you're taking so long.
That's a good challenge for some young mathematician or, you know, algorithm wizard out there. Create an eval bar that starts to take into account the time available to each player.
We've got a new assignment for Ben.
Does find the best move in the position.
By the way, bishop f6 has a benefit. If we were afraid of queen e7 and queen e2 as a source of counterplay, the queen, sorry, you're not going to the e-file anytime soon. Bishop f6, bishop f5, and beautiful defensive bishop, by the way. Yeah. Now, the one weakness that Vishy had in the position, that's really nicely covered.
Notice Vishy's trying to play solid chess quickly because he knows the clock is against Garry. He wants to play logical moves, but he needs to play progressive moves, in my opinion, meaning moves that make progress in some way. Yeah, push yourself forward. Now offering the trade of queens, giving Garry a gigantic decision to make here. Will you trade queens or will you play check? Garry said, I'm going to play check. And now he says, draw?
Let's trade.
I think a draw is because of the time eval.
Well, that's what Garry wants.
Yes, the time eval.
I better take a draw. I mean,
I
don't have enough advantages in the position.
We see it. And the repetition is on, both sides saying, respect, my friend.
Wow.
And we've seen our second draw.
Garry said, I had something. I don't know where it was. You saw that.
He didn't have much.
I had something. I lost it.
Let's see if we can listen to the players. I don't know. No whispering, guys.
But it's no, it's only when you get to the position and you understand. But the same position with G5 is better than G6.
And I'm sure that it's queen of c, maybe not. But on f4, just 6 is nice. Maybe on f4, you still cannot play f5. And f4, and then C6, we could go.
I mean, C5, I was happy to play, and then I was sad.
Yeah, but still, because was calculating wise when it's for you to play.
But after you played rook e1, I went what? Hey,
King C7.
King c7. You should have something more maybe, but I don't see.
No, I didn't see that.
Because bishop c6, I have
King
pieces.
was king. No, it was queen. No, it was king.
With queen and rook d7 still. I mean, not
Yeah.
yet the one.
Yeah, that's still.
After rook e8, of course, king c6. But before.
But bishop is
Discussing what would maybe follow.
Yeah, Maurice, it was a tense, good effort by both players. Were there any missed opportunities? You saw Garry was prying in that position. Was there a missed opportunity?
Yes, and I think that as we jump to the big board here, that there was one opportunity. We talked about it, though. The move queen to h6 instead, after this misstep with queen to d7. Queen to h6, making sure this pawn can't move. We saw that happen on the very next move, and this would not have been easy, although it was very sharp. Queen to e7, bishop to g8. The engine here gives the best move as queen to e2, just ditching this pawn if you take with check, then dropping back with your bishop. This position, wow, giving up 2 pawns, and now knight to e5, and then suddenly, no, this is ridiculous. This could not be the move it's suggesting. I don't understand. Queen takes g6. Knight to e7 is the move it's giving. Knight to e7. And look at this sneaky attack. The idea of bishop to a4 is coming, hitting the c2 square. That is some deep stuff. Very tricky, not easy to continue in this position. A lot he had to calculate. Garry misstepped with the move queen to h8. Didn't go for this line. Maybe with good reason, and another draw. But as we know, in clutch chess, draws shift the money over. So
that's exactly right. So maybe a small missed opportunity in that one, but no blood has been drawn just yet here, as it's half a point apiece through our first 2 rapid games of the day. Soon, though, we will be switching up the pace as we're heading in to the blitz portion of the day. Still 2 more games ahead of us with this very same starting position. Now, as we go to break,